Live, we are live. So welcome to Friday Live with me, Matthew Dashper-Hughes, and it's my absolute pleasure this week to be joined by my friend Veronica Kitton, and Veronica is VK Business Assist, and we're going to be talking about seeing through the eyes of the customer this week. So every week we're going to be talking about different things, interesting things, and basically I'm going to be sharing with you some of the interesting people who are in my network, because frankly it's a real privilege to be able to bring what they do to you. So Veronica, would you like to start off by telling us maybe 60 to 90 seconds about who you are, what it is you do, how you add value to your customers?
Yeah, sure. So thanks for having me today. It's been a pleasure to be welcomed. I started my business about 18 months ago, and prior to that I worked in the private social care sector, and my job was to map the referral process for anybody in the care system, and that meant being extremely sensitive to that customer journey, that client journey, and understanding it from their point of view and how we could make that as comfortable as possible, but also understanding it internally as well. So making sure that we had behind the scenes all the processes involved to make that journey happen, to facilitate that journey. And what I gained over that 10 years of working in that sector was something that I could bring to the small business world. And today that looks like the customer journey workshops that I provide for small businesses. So that's kind of my background. In terms of adding value, and as a business owner myself, I feel it is around objectivity. That is where I feel I can be your second pair of eyes and enable you as a business owner to see things that perhaps you don't see yourself because you're too close to the detail. So for me, it's about enabling you to stand back, to be objective, to visualize and to map what that customer journey looks like and what the experience is like for your customers, and to ask some why questions and to ask some awkward questions. But by doing that, you get to truly understand what that experience is like for the customer and how you can facilitate that internally.
Excellent. Excellent. Thank you very much indeed. That's a beautiful summary right there. So that some of what you just said there, I kind of want to leap straight into the middle here, because when you talked about your past and how you were taking the customer journey and mirroring it within your processes, that sort of leads me straight into the middle of something that's always bugged me. Now, sorry to start with something that bugs me, but it's an interesting area to start with me. But CRMs, customer relationship management software, or I suppose even at the most basic level, like bits of post-it notes and what's going on in the business owner's brain, because that's where the CRM exists to start with for a lot of small businesses. Very often, when you get to the point of needing a CRM, because it's usually the sort of thing you need. Nobody ever really wakes up in the morning and says, hey, you know what I really want is a CRM. Yay. Something that you need, right? So given that you need it, and given that it's there to codify and really capture the kind of customer journey and put it in a way that actually makes sense, so that your business processes can consistently meet the needs of the customer at every point in that journey. Mm-hmm. Because it's so necessary. Why is it that, in my experience, when CRMs get set up, very often it just doesn't work? I mean, they just don't do a great job of doing it. Is it the software? Is it the input? Is it where does it go so wrong for so many people?
Yeah, that's a really good question. And typically I see a little bit of a situation of a workman blaming his tools a little bit, and let's kick the CRM. But actually, from experience, and again going back to my experience, was to map that customer journey to the CRM, as you've said, is that's the starting point, essentially, is to map the customer journey and understand what that looks like. Now, if you were to get a CRM and just plonk it in the middle of everything, you're essentially putting a sticky plaster over the top. And actually what you have to do is look behind the scenes and see what's happening there, understand what that customer journey is, understand what those processes are, so that then you can understand what that's like and give it meaning through the CRM. So essentially what it is about is interweaving that into your day-to-day. It's a cultural thing as well. It's very much about that is your hub of information. That's what your go-to place. Now, if it's seen as a bolt-on, it's not going to work because it's seen as an added thing, an extra thing, that CRM over there that is just the headache in the corner. And actually, by mapping it to your customer journey, you're actually interweaving it into your day-to-day work life. So I would say that was what I would see from experience.
Interesting. So this is I like your phrase. This is very often the case of the workman, bad workman blaming his tools or blaming their tools, because that I kind of had a horrible feeling that you might say that. But I mean, there are certain CRMs that I don't particularly like. Taste Microsoft Dynamics. Sorry, did I say that out loud? But yeah. But there's some that I really like. Salesforce, HubSpot. I mean, these are great bits of kit, right? But even it's like sort of relatively basic end, something like Monday.com or something like that, which is something that you can access online relatively simply and at a relatively low cost. It always strikes me that that's the starting point for the journey. It's about configuration, and that configuration has to be starting with the view of seeing through the customer's eyes, as is the title of today's conversation.
Absolutely.
So there's a couple of things from what you just said that I'd really like to explore a little bit more. So the first thing is what that customer journey looks like, how you even start mapping something like that, which is so, I suppose, intuitively understood by some people in the business and so alien to others.
Mm-hmm.
The second thing I really want to talk about is that cultural piece that you just talked about, to actually embed it into the point where it becomes part of the corporate DNA or the company's DNA. So that way it really does work, and that's just the brain of the business, if you like. So talk to us first about how you would even map out a customer journey.
Yeah, and this is a great around the table situation. It's a great opportunity actually to have a bit of team building, because what it does is it gets all the key stakeholders around the table to start to unpack what that looks like. Now, by key stakeholders, obviously internal staff members, it could be, even better, customers around the table to map that. And to put it very simply, because about a third of businesses don't currently map their customer journey. So to make a start on that, it may be worth looking at breaking it down into 3 stages. So a beginning, a middle, and an end. And look at what all those touch points are within those little sections. Think about the way that the customer might be feeling at that point. What pains are they experiencing? Also, why have they come to you in the first? What's their search history? And looking at what their timeframes are within those stages. And also where things are working well as well, because I think we automatically think that there's going to be touch points along the way where there's snags and the customer's getting caught up in those snags and not having a great experience. And we need to be listening out for those things and engaging with customers at points within that journey to understand why that is. But also we need to be looking at, well, that actually works really well. We're getting great feedback on that. How can we then pop that somewhere else in the journey to also ensure that there's a good experience? So what can we learn from that pleasure point, essentially, as well?
Interesting. So it's about understanding what the problems are, the pains are that you solve potentially for them, but also what the pleasurable elements are, what the future gains are for actually continuing to do business with you. So it's a little bit of the current problem plus the reward that comes.
Sure.
Beginning, a middle, and end. 1, 2, and 3. I mean, it sounds simple when you put it like that. So what are the challenges that people typically find in business when they are starting to map this journey out, where previously it's only ever been kind of in between people's ears, if you like?
Yeah, I think if you're currently not mapping your customer journey, you could very well be in a position where you're not properly listening to your customers' experiences. So it's making a start on doing that. I think the challenges are being very much looking at it from an internal view, perhaps too much. You're looking at it more from your own experience and in your own viewpoint. I think when you're talking about the small business owner, it is probably finding the time to sit down and to actually think about what those key stages are, because in the middle of all that, you're in the midst of dealing with customers themselves and working in the business, and actually it is about stepping away and knowing that in order to scale up and to provide your customers with the very best of you, that is going to be needed. You're going to have to sit down and do that beginning, that middle and that end to understand it.
Yeah.
And I think that is the challenge for smaller businesses, particularly if it's just yourself. That it really is about finding time to empty your head and actually knowing how to empty your head in the right way as well. So, you know, having the tools to understand and actually, I think it's having somebody to be that second pair of eyes with you, because you're also too close. It's like trying to do your own inquiry. Really, you're too close to it. You have to be distant from it, and often having somebody outside with that objective view helps.
I mean, when I was in my last corporate role, we got external facilitators in to assist us with some workshopping of customer journeys and mapping that kind of stuff out for our different stores out on the high street versus our stores in university areas versus our stores in shopping malls, because the customer journeys were slightly different depending on who they were, where they were coming from, what the demographics were, all that kind of good stuff. I think you've spoken a lot of truth in there, because for me, I mean, certainly in my world now, when we're talking about sales and management and how that kind of interfaces into marketing, lead generation, initial awareness, you know, into consideration, into engagement, and into the sales funnel, you know, you see an awful lot of this. I suppose what you might call push marketing, where
Mm-hmm.
start with the idea of, hey, I've got this brilliant product, I've got this wonderful thing, I've got this great service, it does this, it does that, it does the other, we've got this, we've got that, we've got the other, and they're genuinely passionate and excited about the thing that they've produced, but nobody really gives a damn about it, because, you know, ultimately what they're doing is they're saying, we've got this thing, let's go and find, you know, some signposts that we can point towards it, and then we can attract these customers to it. And it's basically pushing the stuff down their throat.
Mm-hmm.
When they start with, sorry, I can't believe I just did the rabbit ears. My God, I feel so. Oh dear, yeah, that's not good. But you try and turn that push marketing into like a pull marketing thing, where they nominally start by doing a little bit of a survey, working out what it is the customers want. So they put the customer first.
Mm.
Still then go and develop a customer-facing product that they then go and signpost to it and push it to these customers. So it's slightly better, but pull marketing is really push marketing with a bit of a facelift. You know, what we're talking about here is, it strikes me, is much more about kind of almost customer-centric marketing, where you're putting the customer at the heart of the whole thing. So everything revolves around that. So no matter where the customer starts to interact with you, you know, whether it's you know, on social media, or it's, you know, with somebody client-facing like a fee-earning kind of salesperson or business development person, or it's even if they just phone up customer services or they interact on your website, the feeling that they get is this is all joined up. It's the same thing.
Mm.
I know who I'm dealing with. It feels coherent. Am I on the right track?
Yeah, definitely. I think that's definitely a fair summary. But it's also listening out to your customers when it might not necessarily be through a structured way of gathering feedback. It is often those nuggets of gold that they may say that gives you so much to be able to then work with that, understand that from their point of view, and you think, gosh, yes, I've really seen that from your point of view, and help you to make sure that what you're delivering is absolutely in keeping with what they're telling you and their experiences. So I guess if you have a team of people, it's ensuring that you've got some kind of function or space for even those very, I guess you could say, qualitative, anecdotal comments that are said within everyday interactions, that somehow if you could just capture those, let's not lose those, because there's a lot of gold in there.
Yeah, really true. Again, sorry to be more prosaic and kind of try and go back to my own experience, but I know from my history in retail, one of the things that I absolutely insisted upon every time that I started at a new senior role was to actually go and work in the shops. Because, you know, I was a firm believer, as a wise person once told me, there's nothing you need to know about a retail business you can't learn from the shop floor. So go actually and serve the customers, talk to them, because it's those little bits of, I suppose, the softer details, you know, the qualitative stuff, as you call it, that give you the real insights. It's much more than just information. Insight is where you've got hidden truth, the stuff that's there that, you know, they don't even know it's an insight, but for you, it's like this massive aha. You can't run it from a board, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely, totally. And it really is, and it's just having your ear to the ground for those situations. Definitely, they will tell you a lot.
They really do. And this takes me on then, I guess, to the piece that you mentioned before when we were talking about CRMs and their somewhat, you know, haphazard implementation, which is really the cultural piece. And this fascinates me because it strikes me that, you know, culture, which is really, I suppose, a confluence of all the collective attitudes of the people who work in a business, combined with the vision of the business as well, and how that is implemented in reality. When we sort of see a CRM not kind of embedding, not being adopted by that culture, what is it that, I suppose, what is it that legs that up? What stops that actually working properly? How doesn't it work?
Well, I guess it could be around silos within organisations at times. You know, different departments maybe coming from different angles on how things are done. But again, what I will say about customer journey mapping is that it's a great opportunity to get round the table and actually start to see things from the other department's point of view, and understand as you transition from that beginning stage, the people that deal with that beginning stage, people that deal with that middle stage, and people that deal with that end stage, is actually you've got an appreciation of that customer journey as you map it out, as the customer transitions through all your departments essentially. So I see that that's potentially one of the challenges, but also one of the solutions to understanding, you know, why a CRM might not embed into a culture. But it's seeing it as the CRM is very much your hub of information, and the customer does not like to have to say things more than once. And if you're transitioning through that journey, you need to know what's happened before. You need to know those conversations that have happened before. So it very much is around getting into the culture of using the system and everybody using it, so that you can see across the spectrum what's going on internally, so that you're not annoying your customers by them having to repeat themselves. You can see the chronology of what's happened before.
I absolutely, totally relate. I agree all day. Let's not be mean and name them, but let's just say a very large telecoms company in Britain, which has got a purple logo. I couldn't possibly comment on who that might be, but certainly the journey wasn't joined up. So I get that. I get that client side, that customer facing kind of frustration. I suffered it myself last week. So yeah, totally understand. Going back to the point you made before about the things falling between the cracks in between the silos. silos
Mm-hmm.
really resonated with me, because I mean, speaking from a sales and marketing point of view, it always strikes me that, you know, the holy grail of revenue generation, of business growth, of sales really, is the fact that you can, if you really understand the voice of the customer, you get the customer journey, you understand how all that all joins up, and you can carry that through between your marketing and your sales, so it's completely seamless. So the kind of lead generation and informational stuff that's produced by the marketing side of things is totally in line and in lockstep with that customer journey, which means that actually the sales then seamlessly follows on from it, so that, you know, lead conversion is massively increased, lead quality is massively increased, and of course then the salespeople are able to kind of really do what they're supposed to do on the back of the great stuff that the marketeers do. It's that piece between, you know, customer experience, marketing, and sales. But those three silos, when they are silos, actually become almost combative to each other. You get sales teams going, yeah, but the marketeers just keep giving us crap leads, and the marketeers going, yeah, but the salespeople never actually call the bloody leads, you know, do anything with it. And the two, you know, you've got the sales director and the marketing director, you know, savaging each other in the boardroom on a weekly basis, blaming each other for the other one's inadequacies. And it strikes me that actually, if the implementation of the CRM is mirrored properly with a really good customer journey program like you're talking about, it can actually break down some of those walls. Because if it's done really well, there's an opportunity here in actually removing the silos altogether. That's, in your experience, something that can happen?
Yeah, I think there is a whole load of value in communicating as a team, and understanding, I guess, those snags that happen internally as well as externally, because you can bet your bottom dollar that customers pick up when things aren't going very well behind the scenes. And, you know, if you walk in somewhere and there's an atmosphere because the staff aren't very happy, then you're not stupid, you'll pick it up as a customer. So it's really important to have that internal communication and understand that beginning, that middle, and that end, and how you all join together to understand internally what your challenges are, and then maybe have, you know, whether that's reflective in what the customer's saying as well.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of truth in that. So actually doing all of this stuff, you know, it can't come into an environment cold. There has to be an element of I suppose, getting the culture right and going through the necessary levels of cultural change to make sure this stuff, it actually is planted in fertile ground, if you like. It also needs to be, I suppose, sponsored from the top and adopted from the top, so that actually there's no kind of that thing that you get in sometimes, especially in larger organisations, where, you know, people who've seen so many different initiatives come along, you know, wither and die, and so they tend to take the view of, oh, here's another bit of change, you know, this too shall pass. Keep it down, you know, we'll keep on doing things the way we've always done them, it'll go away, you know. So it strikes me that if it's done really well and it's facilitated properly and everybody engages with it, actually this can be the thing that can supercharge a business. Absolutely.
And I'm a big believer in inclusion and including and participating as you know, internally, between yourselves, and inclusion is more likely to result in take up, essentially, isn't it? So yeah, I'm a huge believer in that, and that everybody gets involved, and what, you know, what do they need out of it, what's working well at the moment, what's not working well, and you know, and having a champion as well, somebody who is going to be that person who is going to support the cause, and maybe be the voice of, you know, if we're talking about CRMs and some of the challenges, is being that voice, that internal voice, to understand, you know, why not, it's not working particularly well in certain areas, or what's working very well. But what I will say is that it's a constant process of evolution, and it always evolves. So it's a moving it's a moving piece of work. As your processes evolve, your CRM needs to evolve as well. So it's not a quick fix. And I think that's really important. I think that people think this CRM is going to solve the whole problems. We have a CRM and everything will be fine. And of course, you have to use a CRM. You have to you have to use it. You have to understand how to use it. You need to see it as very much your hub and go-to place. Everything should be drawing into that one place, and you know that it's embedded. It's embedded into what we do.
I used this, didn't you? Last time. I mean, that's very true. It has to be, you know, culturally endemic, and you're right. It's got to be a process, not an event. You know, you can't say, I've got a CRM now, that's fine, that's perfect. It's cast in tablets of stone. I'm going to put it up there on the shelf and admire it. You know, it's got to be something that's a living part of what you do. You know,
Sure.
If people don't do everything through the CRM, you know, then it's never going to actually really affect it. And it strikes me that it's one of those things which will constantly evolve, and actually it really ever is finished. Yeah?
Sure. So you've got to make sure also that therefore it's future proof as well. So understanding what the longer term goals are for the business as well, and what you want that to be. You know, practicalities of using it. You know, how many users do there need to be? What your budget is. You know, all of those things have to be taken into consideration.
Excellent. This is really, really interesting and fascinating, and I can't believe it, but we're actually coming up towards the back end of our half an hour already. It's kind of flashed by very, very quickly. So thank you very much for this. I hope you found it interesting as well. Tell me,
absolutely.
What sort of things can people be reading, listening, watching, or just picking up on if they want to know more about this kind of stuff?
Yeah, sure. So there's one book that I would say is worth a read if you're thinking about implementing customer journey into your business, and that's called Transform CX by Isabella Vigliani. So you might want to check that resource out. And
how are we spelling this?
Vigliani.
Isabella Vigliani. Great, good stuff. Thank you very much indeed. And I mean, obviously, people could also contact you and maybe engage your services as well for these things. So, you know, it'd be terribly churlish of me not to at least give you the opportunity to tell people how to get in touch with you. So, how would you like people to reach out to you?
Yeah, I'm more than happy to have a chat with anybody who is obviously thinking that now is the time. We need to start thinking ahead. So yeah, people can contact me in various ways. So I'm active on LinkedIn. So if you search for my name, Veronica Kitton, on LinkedIn, you'll find me. Also, I have a Facebook business page, VK Business Assist, and you could also email me at veronica@vkbusinessassist.com.
Absolutely fantastic. And from my point of view, my name is Matthew Dashper-Hughes. Connect me on LinkedIn, connect me on Facebook, follow me on Twitter, Sandler_MDH. You know, carrier pigeons, smoke signals. You know, I respond to most things. Very, very happy to do that. And usually, you know, don't bother typing the whole name because Matthew Dashper-Hughes is very, very long. Just use the initials, MDH. So yes, my email is mdh@sandler.com. Veronica, it's been an absolute pleasure talking to you today.
Thank you. Lovely, thank you.
Now, next week, everybody, we've got the wonderful Mr. Anthony Taylor, author of the new book, Mental Toughness Metaphors, and he and I will be talking about what is mental toughness and why should you care. So, Veronica, thank you so much for that. Everybody, I will see you next week for Friday Live. I hope that's been useful. Have a great Friday, great weekend. Whatever you're doing, do it safely, and we'll see you very, very soon.